Who's there? Whispered in the dark, this question begins a tale of conspiracy, deception, and moral ambiguity. And in a play where everyone has something to hide, its answer is far from simple. Written by William Shakespeare between 1599 and 1601, Hamlet depicts its titular character haunted by the past, but immobilized by the future.
The play is said to have come from common themes in ancient stories. Killing a brother for personal gain, committing adultery, faking madness as a method for hiding in plain sight. Stories based on the idea of fratricide or killing one's brother bring to mind biblical tales like that of Cain and Abel, indicating themes that had been used for thousands of years. Shakespeare, however, masterfully captured these universal tales and put his unique spin on them. Beyond the Cain and Abel story, the oldest known source cited for Hamlet is historian Saxo Grammaticus's Gesta Danorum, or Deeds of the Danes, from the late 12th century. In this tale, Saxo documents long-standing oral legends. Shakespeare may also have relied on contemporary work, such as Thomas Kyd's The Spanish Tragedy, dating from the 1580s or early 1590s. In addition to the universality of his plays, Shakespeare often draws audiences in and holds their attention through the use of dramatic and situational irony.
Mere months after the sudden death of his father, Hamlet returns from school a stranger to his own home, and deeply unsure of what might be lurking in the shadows. But his brooding takes a turn when he's visited by a ghost that bears his father's face. The phantom claims to be the victim of a murder most foul, and convinces Hamlet that his uncle Claudius usurped the throne and stole Queen Gertrude's heart. The prince's mourning turns to rage, and he begins to plot his revenge on the new king and his court of conspirators. The play is an odd sort of tragedy, lacking either the abrupt brutality or all-consuming romance that characterize Shakespeare's other work in the genre. Instead, it plumbs the depths of its protagonist's indecisiveness and the tragic consequences thereof.
Hamlet the play has lasted because of Hamlet the man. You see, Hamlet isn't an action hero. For a prince, he's a pretty normal guy who gets dumped into a situation that's way over his head. Hamlet's uncle Claudius killed Hamlet's father and then married his mother. Hamlet finds out about this when his dad's ghost shows up and tells him to take revenge on Claudius. Hamlet wants to do the right thing, but when he starts seeing dead people, everything comes into question. Was this his dad's real ghost, or was it some evil spirit deceiving him? How can Hamlet be sure Claudius really killed his father? And if he did, what specifically should Hamlet do? But what can Hamlet do without hurting his mom? And just how much is she involved anyway? It's enough to drive you mad. And actually, it almost drives Hamlet mad. To be or not to be? People keep reading Hamlet for centuries because watching him wrestle with that question is hypnotic. It is intense. It is a classic.
The ghost's revelation draws Hamlet into multiple dilemmas. What should he do? Who can he trust? And what role might he play in the course of justice? These questions are complicated by a tangled web of characters, forcing Hamlet to negotiate friends, family, court counselors, and love interests, many of whom possess ulterior motives. The prince constantly delays and dithers over how to relate to others and how he should carry out revenge. This can make Hamlet more than a little exasperating, but it also makes him one of the most human characters Shakespeare ever created.
Hamlet. Hamlet is the Prince of Denmark. He's college age. In fact, he wants to go back to college during the play, and he's popular with the masses. Before he was paralyzed by an impossible duty, he was courting Ophelia and studying to become king someday. The ghost. This is the ghost of Hamlet's father, the murdered king of Denmark. He shows up for one purpose, to get Hamlet to revenge him. Claudius. Claudius is the dead king's brother, and his murderer. Claudius killed the king and married the queen. He does feel guilty about what he did, but he's still scheming to hold on to power throughout the play. Gertrude. Gertrude is Hamlet's mother. She clearly loves Hamlet and seems to be innocent, but she did marry Claudius awfully fast. Polonius. Polonius is one of the king's advisors. He means well, but he's an old guy who can't stop talking and is essentially a fool.
Ophelia is the daughter of Polonius and sister of Laertes. She is also Hamlet's love interest. She is a young, bright, and gentle woman, comfortable even with those above her in rank, and she is devoted to Hamlet. Laertes is adventurous but obedient. He's a young man eager to begin his life. Laertes' name comes from Homer's The Odyssey. He has lived in France, and therefore he understands royal etiquette. Laertes is the gentle, loving older brother to Ophelia.
Rosencrantz and Guildenstern. Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are old acquaintances at the court. Claudius asks them to spy on Hamlet, and they agree.
The foil character to Hamlet is Fortinbras. Both are noble princes, their fathers were killed and their uncles now on the throne. They seek to regain the throne and avenge their father's death. There are some differences between the two characters which illustrate Hamlet's weakness. Hamlet wishes to kill Claudius for personal revenge while Fortinbras works on the name of Norway. The differences show their inaction and action. Hamlet is bound by personal moral and hesitate, but Fortinbras is not bound any moral dilemmas and his mission is not one of revenge.
Horatio is a loyal friend to Prince Hamlet. Horatio is also a student at Wittenberg in Germany. His role, which he performs well, is trusted ally and logical thinker. Horatio, by virtue of having Hamlet's trust and company, is often privy to the prince's more private thoughts and plans. Through Horatio, Shakespeare often gives the audience insight into Hamlet, too.
The players. This is a group of actors who had visited the court in the past. Hamlet likes them, jokes around with them, and gets them to make Claudius show his guilt.
Rather than rushing into things, Hamlet becomes consumed with the awful machinations of thinking itself. And over the course of the play, his endless questions come to echo throughout our own racing minds. To accomplish this, Shakespeare employs his most introspective language, from the usurping king's blazing contemplation of heaven and hell to the prince's own cackling meditation on mortality. Shakespeare uses melancholic monologues to breathtaking effect. This is perhaps best exemplified in Hamlet's most famous declaration of angst. To be or not to be? That is the question. Whether 'tis nobler in the mind to suffer the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, or to take arms against a sea of troubles, and by opposing, end them.
The existential dilemma. Okay, relax. It isn't as complicated as it sounds, and it's all summed up in 6 words. To be or not to be. Hamlet's life is going so badly that he asks at that point, should I kill myself or keep going? What's the right thing to do? Hamlet manages to voice the strain that a lot of people feel at some point or another. The world is just too much. Appearance versus reality. Everyone in the play is concerned with what's real and what isn't, and with the relationship between appearance and reality. Is Hamlet really crazy? Are Rosencrantz and Guildenstern just there to hang out as friends? Who is behind that tapestry? Sex and desire. Oh yes, sex is important here. Look at how Hamlet talks to Ophelia, how Polonius talks about how desire drove him crazy when he was young, and, especially, how Gertrude's marriage to Claudius gnaws at Hamlet. Justice. You might also think of this as a question. How do you do the right thing when you don't know what it is, and everything is falling apart around you? Hamlet wants to be a good son, but by the time he figures out that Claudius really killed his father, events are already out of hand, and he never really does get a handle on them.
Is Hamlet's madness part of a performance to confuse his enemies? Or are we watching a character on the brink of insanity? These questions weigh heavily on Hamlet's interactions with every character, and since he spends much of the play facing inward, he often fails to see the destruction left in his wake. He's particularly cruel to Ophelia. Similar warning signs of tragedy are constantly overlooked throughout the play. Sometimes these oversights occur because of willful blindness, such as when Ophelia's father dismisses Hamlet's alarming actions as mere lovesickness. At other points, tragedy stems from deliberate duplicity. These moments leave us with the uncomfortable knowledge that tragedy evolves from human error, even if our mistake is to leave things undecided. For all these reasons, perhaps the one thing we never doubt is Hamlet's humanity. But we must constantly grapple with who the real Hamlet might be. Is he a noble son avenging his father, or a mad prince creating courtly chaos? Should he act or observe, doubt or trust? Who is he? Why is he here? And who's out there, waiting in the dark?